Alrighty. The thing says I'm live, so I must be. And yes, Debbie, you sharp-eyed among you may notice that all the stuff is cleared off the stove, and it's actually going right now. Uh, like I said, I got the stove all cleaned off, all ready to go, and it's burning now. I made a little video last night. I decided I'd make myself a cake using the recipe out of that Monarch stove catalog and cookbook. Turned out fairly good. I made a video about it. It's kind of an impromptu video because I had to stay up all night last night because I'll be working midnight shift for the next week and gotta get myself shifted around onto a different sleep schedule. So I just made a quick video of it. Turned out fairly good, but it did burn a little bit on top. I should have covered it with aluminum foil like I do like I do making bread. But I kept checking on it. It was fine, and it was fine, and it was fine, and then it was burnt. So, but anyway, I'm going to premiere that video at 7:45. So about 15 minutes after this ends, that video will premiere, and we can all watch it together then. And it's a pretty good recipe. I mean, it tastes real good. It was a spice cake, and I'm happy. Apart from being burnt a little on top, I'm happy with how it turned out. It tastes really good. And I got the recipe in the description of the video, so if you watch that, you'll be able to see it. Like I said, I just kind of made it quick. And, I forgot to mention my channel members, which I usually do at the beginning of the video. And usually for channel members, I'll put a video up a couple of days early before I release it for the general public. And I didn't do it this time either. I'm just going to premiere it tonight because, like I said, I'll be working midnights for the next week or so. But next week I should be having a stream. I'll either be working the midnight shift or I'll be off. I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to check. I'll have to double check my schedule, but pretty sure there'll be a show next week. The following week, probably not, because I think from there I go to second shift, 3 to 11, and that falls right in the middle of doing this, so I won't be able to do the show. But looks like we're on for next week, which is nice. And I'm going to be doing some aluminum polishing this week, and I should be able to get the rest of or at least some of the pile of aluminum I got that needs to be cleaned up and shiny, and I'll show that to you next week. I did find one thing this week. I got it from my antique dealer. She knew I was looking for one, and she came across one. I finally have a Martin skillet. That's the hamburger logo for the obvious reason. It's a number 5. Needs a little bit of cleaning, but I gave $40 for this. I noticed as soon as I bought this, there was a whole bunch of Martin stuff that popped up on the Goodwill site. There was a number 8, number 5, and there was one in with a bunch of other stuff. And I still got this cheaper than what those went for, so I'm pretty happy with it. And $40 for a Martin is a pretty nice price. This is like I said, it's a nice one. There is a fairly rare Martin skillet. They call it a Monday morning skillet. They're all number 3s, and Martin in their patterns, the part with the logo on it was a separate plate that was easily replaced because the lettering would wear out a lot faster than the rest of the pattern would. So they made a separate plate that fit in the bottom of the pattern. And when this lettering got worn, you could pop the plate out, put a new one in, and you were ready to go again. Well, what happened, according to the president of the company, is the casting foreman came in to work Monday morning with a blinding hangover, and apparently he was in charge of setting up the patterns for the day's production. And on a couple of the patterns, he put the logo plate in upside down. So rather than being oriented like this, hanging from the handle, this would be right side up, which is the way they make modern skillets nowadays. But back then, they always put them so that the logo was right side up with the handle down. Well, they ended up making, a day's worth of production with the plate on upside down. So they call them the Monday morning skillets. And, they're pretty scarce because there was only one or two patterns that he did. It was only that one day worth of production that they made. And they're very collectible if you ever come across one. And Martin, they're fairly heavy pan for their size. That was one of their selling points. Some people prefer heavier pans. Some people like them lighter. And they're fairly hefty. They're not as hefty as as a modern Lodge to be the same size, but they're pretty substantial iron. But anyway, these are, like I said, these are pretty cool. And the Martin ones, they have the hamburger logo for the obvious reasons. And from 1940 or so on until they quit making cast iron cookware, they used a logo without the outlines. It just said Martin, Florence, Georgia. I can't remember if they had the little outline around stove and range, or if they did away with that too. But that was the plain logo. It didn't have the outlines and the hamburger shape to it. But anyway, there's that. And like I said, I'm going to be premiering the video after this. So 7:45, you can see me do a half-assed job of making a cake in my oven. That's the first time I've actually tried making a cake from scratch. Usually I just use a cake mix and that. And it still worked out pretty good. Like I said, tastes real good. It's nice and moist. Didn't rise quite as much as I would have liked, but it still rolls pretty good. Let me scroll back here in the comments and see what's happening and who's here. Nice, glad to see the stove going. Yeah, it's going now. I'll probably have to throw some wood in it here before too much longer. That was from Northeast Vermonter, Debbie. Debbie's here. Going to be chilly, supposed to freeze tonight where you are. Let's see, Cynthia Wesley, good to see you. Debbie again, got all your plants covered. Big plastic pot over them for now. Yeah, I moved. I mean, you've seen kind of in the background my hibiscus and another one that's impatiens, I think, or begonia, something of that sort. I forget exactly what it is. The hibiscus bush, I usually bring that in when it starts getting about 40 or below at night. It doesn't do real good when it gets much colder than that, and frost will really cause it problems. And no matter what, when I first bring it in, it'll drop a ton of leaves because, they usually, when I take it outside in the spring, when it's warm enough to leave it outside, it'll drop a ton of leaves too. And then it'll start regrowing. And by the time I bring it back in for the winter, it's ready to drop leaves again. So Raymond's here. Billy Lee, good to see you guys. How's that new lid coming? Yeah, I'm going to be doing some aluminum shining this week. So probably next week I'll have at least some of it ready to show you again, see how it turns out. Billy Lee, have a freeze warning in Virginia. Yeah, I got the wood cook stove fired up. Got your long Grinch pants on. Let's see, Debbie. Yeah, I did bake the cake. Like I said, the video is coming up after this. Let's see. 2 little lodges left, and for others that are very crusty and dirty. Yeah, and the newer lodges, if you can get them for next to nothing used, and clean them up if they ain't too far gone. If you want a new lodge skillet, small ones are like $15-20. So I cleaned up a Dutch oven, number 8 Dutch oven for your niece. All right. I'm going to cook on the wood stove. Not tonight, but I will be doing, a fair bit of cooking on it over the course of the winter now that I'm underway with it again. I'll come up with some other things to try on. Some I'll do live on stream. Some I'll make videos on. Some, I might film myself on stream doing it and do both at the same time. I do have to start getting more videos put out because, I mean, you get views from your live streams, but what really kind of moves you on the algorithm and gets you recommended more than the usual YouTube machinations is putting out videos fairly consistently. I mean, it used to be if you could put out like a 10-minute video once every day or twice a day, regardless of what it was, even if it was basically stupid, they would really hype your channel. And they've backed away from that. They're constantly adjusting the algorithm, so try and make it hard for you to figure out how to game the system. But if you if you consistently put out videos on a pretty regular schedule, it helps grow your channel, and it's kind of nice. Let's see. As trying to break yourself a repeat buying. I mean, how many of one skillet, Dutch oven, etc. do you need? Yeah, and like I said, I got quite an excess of iron stuff built up that I need to do something with. And when you buy lots on an auction site, a lot of times you'll end up with extra stuff, or you end up with 3 or 4 of the same thing. So a lot of my giveaways and stuff that I get rid of is things I already have 2 or 3 of them. So, and I'm the sort of guy, I mean, I would rather have, instead of worrying about getting a complete set of, every size Martin, I would rather have one nice one, one nice example of this, and then try and find something else that I don't already have. More of a type collector, I guess. It's not to say if I find something at a good price and a different size of something that I already have that I won't get it, but I'd rather get 2 or 3 different skillets than 2 or 3 of the same thing, rather than worrying about getting a complete set of one thing or another. Oh yeah, Debbie has tendonitis. Yeah, it can be a pain, and well, literally, but tendonitis, I mean, it can be hard to get rid of, especially in your elbows or your wrists. And there's not really a lot you can do for it. I mean, anti-inflammatories like aspirin or Advil help, but mostly it's just a matter of time. And when you're constantly using it, it never really gets a chance to properly heal. And of course, if you don't use it, it gets even worse. So, yeah, I mean, there's tendonitis is really it is a bitch. Can't find your chicken skillet. You put it up somewhere. Yeah. I've got quite a few things I know I have, but I don't know where I have them. You got a number 8 CHF. Except everything perfect except for a small patch of something shiny and silver and a tested positive for lead. That's the shits. Yeah, I don't know of any really good ways of if something is lead positive. I don't really know a good safe way of getting rid of it for sure. So I'm not gonna make any suggestions. You might be able to, if it's lead paint, that usually comes off fairly clean, but yeah, I mean, I don't, you're best off not using something that comes up positive for lead, not using it for cooking anyway. If it's something really pretty, it looks nice hanging on your wall, or, there's other things you can do with skillets too. Yeah, it made you sad, but yeah, you need a clock for your shed. So yeah, something like that. You can make a clock out of it, or if it's got lead on it and it's cracked, and you can, a lot of people do paintings on them. If you know somebody that does that, they might be interested in it. It was one spot or all over. Not sure you totally trust your swabs either. Depends on what kind of swabs they are. I mean, if you stick with like the brand name 3M brand, they're pretty reliable. I mean, you're not likely to get a false positive or a false negative with them, especially if you do a couple of tests on it. Some of the really cheap ones you can get on Amazon, yeah, I might be a bit more concerned about those, but usually the 3M ones, you can pretty much rely on them. Who else? Fred Revels is here. Good to see you, Fred. I don't know if I missed anybody here. Mike Newby, howdy. Let's see, the Purring Lady, nice to see you from up there in the UP. Yeah, you're getting cold up there. I guess southern Michigan's getting a pretty good amount of snow. We had some snow last week. Got about an inch or so overnight, but it only lasted, into the next day. And we've had a lot of little flurries for the last couple of days. It's been cold and windy all weekend. Of course, when I'm off, the weather's going to suck. And it'll turn nice again now that I'm going back to work. Yeah, I do have a stove going. Cynthia, Debbie. What's the temp there? Right now it is, looks like 33 outside. Probably get down into the 20s tonight. No Country for Old Christy. Nice to see you. I don't think we met before. And welcome to the live stream. Spice cake. Yeah, I really like the flavor of it. It's got a ton of nutmeg in it. You for this recipe, you grate up an entire whole nutmeg. It comes out to probably better than a tablespoon of ground nutmeg by the time you're done with it. Bookworm. Let's see, Cynthia. Bookworm, good to see you. Love you, Martin. What number is Martin again? That's a number 5. You can see the 5 down there. It kind of looks, it looks nice because the logo has got a nice proportion to the rest of the pan. It takes up enough space on the back to look big without looking crowded. So that's kind of cool. You have a huge Martin. Yeah, Martins are, they're pretty popular. So I'm tickled to have one. It was a good price. Like I said, it was $40 for this one. Kevin Carl Rocks, hi from Utah. Good to see you, Kevin. Debbie will be right back. I got lucky with the number 9. Yeah, you can find a big one like that. They're scarce. 6 drops. Always good to see you, darling. Let's see. LG from Texas. Nice to see you. Janet Batista. Flash 14.99. How old is my hibiscus plant? I've had that for quite a while, probably 8 or 10 years at least. Managed to keep it going. Originally, it was 3 of them braided together. There was a red, a pink, and a yellow. But the yellow part of it, somewhere along the line, died off. Now I get mostly reds and pinks off of it for the flowers. And once it starts to, gets over its dropping its leaves, it'll start to grow out and flower again. Usually in, December, January, February, it's blooming pretty heavy for a while. Have you made pizza in your cast iron? It's the best. Yeah, I have. I've got I don't have a pizza video per se, but I have a video where I made my version of Little Caesars cheese bread. It's basically, pizza without the sauce, really. It's just pizza, cheese, pepperoni, and whatnot on it. And that turned out really good. And I did that in a cast iron skillet. And I've made pizza before using my my big round griddles for a pizza stone. And in fact, I'll probably do that somewhere along the line, do a video of that in the wood stove, see how it works. But, big round griddles make really good pizza stones. They crisp up the crust real good. You have snow on the ground in the UP. Should melt in the next few days. Yeah, it's supposed to get better over the course of the week. Get back up into the 60s for a while. And it's been cold, windy, rainy, drizzly, generally nasty the last few days. Today was pretty nice, but I didn't get a whole lot done outside. I got a fair bit of stuff done. Melody Matson, nice to see you. Let's see. What do you think of a gate mark pot with HFCO on the bottom? I don't recognize HFCO, but there were some gate mark stuff that had maker's initials. Marietta is a fairly well-known one. Marietta, and they were, I think, in Pittsburgh, PA, and there's a few variations of MC and Company or MF and Company. I'm trying to remember offhand on Gatemark stuff, but it's pretty rare to see, anything, any kind of numbers other than like one number or a letter on the bottom of Gatemark stuff. So, there's a bit more demand for, more identifiable. You might be able to search around and find out who made it, even if you don't find out exactly who made it, at least, it's known, a known mark of some sort. Do we get to see you eat that spice cake? Well, I might grab a little piece here while I get up and do the stove. I have a few different Martins. Won't hurt you. Try 5 or 6 of the same old thing. Yeah, I mean, if I come across more, I'll certainly, grab one, as long as it's not another number 5. But they ain't real common around here. This is probably the only one I've actually seen around here. And she knew I was looking for it, so she held on to it for me. Not change the subject, but inventing an old wood cook stove is triple wall vent pipe better to use versus double wall. Some places, the building code and your insurance company will mandate you use triple wall. Triple wall is basically double insulated. You have the inside pipe that the smoke passes through, then there's a layer of insulation, another layer of steel, another layer of insulation, then on the outside. So, in general, you are better off with the triple wall. It's more insulated, and it also keeps the inner flue hotter, which helps prevent buildup of creosote, so it'll stay cleaner, which is a big help. So, you're better off with the triple wall. It is a good bit more expensive, though, than the double wall. And a lot of places you can use the double wall. Excuse me. You can use the double wall and still be within the building code. So, you got to kind of look into it. See what your state and local building codes are, and check with your homeowner's insurance. A lot of them get really pissy about wood burning stuff in general, but usually they'll accept a triple wall for sure. So yeah, you're probably better off with the triple. On your cook stove over by the side vent, there's an oblong tag. What's written on it? I'm trying to remember. It says world's largest store, all American, and world's largest store was a slogan of Sears Roebuck Company, and All American, as far as I can tell, that was the American Stove Company out of Shakopee, Minnesota. So this is probably a version that they made for, expressly for Sears, and you'd buy something like this through the Sears catalog. And there's a patent date on the little heat dial on the oven door. I think that was 1924. So this would have been made sometime after 1924, probably 20s, up to maybe 1940 even. And that's something you get through the Sears catalog. Russell Garrow, good to see you. Don't know if I said hi to the purring lady, but hi. We're getting ready for kettle cooking outside again, back into the 80s. Yeah, the weather's always going to screw you over no matter what you're doing. Corey Clark, you're late. Well, good to see you anyway. Did you get snow? Yeah, like I said, we got some snow last week. And I'm going to go throw some wood in the stove here quick. Yeah, let's see. So take this with me and get it out of the way. Highland Foundry Company, Boston, Massachusetts. Cool. Yeah, it's kind of nice to, if you can find out who made things sometimes. Sometimes you never will. I mean, it's either unmarked completely, or it might have, some maker's initials on it, and nobody's ever heard of them. I mean, they've been defunct for over a century. and you never really find out, who MCMM might be, But anyway, I'm going to set this aside. Throw a little wooden stove. Get a sliver under my fingernail reaching for a piece of wood. That'll hold for a bit. And grab a little piece of cake while I'm at it. Grab my glasses first before I sit back down. Fortunately, I've always got tweezers handy if I hang on to them, because slivers aren't an uncommon occurrence when you're dealing with wood. There, I got it. But there's a piece of my cake. Nice brown cake, and smell the spices in it good. It's really good stuff. It's a little bit heavy. It could have rose a little bit more, but if I played with it a little bit, maybe a little bit more baking soda in it, because molasses, it's got a lot of molasses in it too. Molasses is fairly acidic, and the reaction between the baking soda and the acid produces gas bubbles. But I just followed the recipe and used baking powder in it. And yeah, maybe half a teaspoon of baking soda might have made it rise a little more. But anyway, it's really good. And I made a glaze for it instead of frosting it, and that turned out real nice. It's got a real good flavor to it. It's similar to gingerbread, but it still tastes a bit different. Need a good place to set this down that doesn't have tweezers and whatnot in the way. My crowded little desk here. Put my fork where it isn't going to go flying. And yeah, it's yummy looking. Gotta grow. Yeah, and I've mentioned a couple of times, I'll be premiering the video making that with the recipe. Baked it up in my wood stove at 7:45, so 15 minutes after we finish up here, the premiere should come around for that. Let's see if anybody came in while I was messing around. Jorge Luis Georg, nice to see you. Never seen you before. Let's see. Okay, I'm caught up. Yeah, Highland Foundry Company, Boston, Mass. Yeah, I mean, like I said, some things you can identify them if they have initials on them. Sometimes you never will, but that's part of the fun of it. I thought that's what you said. How's your weather in Nebraska? Start eating cake at you, yeah. Well, you have to get the recipe when I get the video up and try it for yourself. And I use that, I think I've shown that to you. What did I do with it? It's sitting in the sink. I use that old Swan's Down cake pan that has a little side vents in it to make this. Turned out real nice and works good. That'll be a good cake pan to use. And there's a bunch of other cake recipes in there that I want to try out. I'll probably be doing them over the winter. Some of them will frost, some of them will glaze. It all depends on how they turned out. It would have been nice if I would have had some frosting made up or something handy where I could have frosted this, because then it would have looked perfect after I cut the top off. But more important how it tastes, and once you get the hang of doing something like this, you can really go to town with it. You live 40 miles from Larry the Cable Guy's hometown. Okay. But anyway, other than that, things are going pretty well around here. Get finally settled into a pretty regular schedule at work, so I'll be able to have a little better idea of when I'll be able to work on things. Get some videos made. Do my live streams pretty regular. I do have to do one little repair on the wood stove, where the top of the oven and that front face around the door come together on the inside. It's rusted out a bit, and that'll let a little bit of ash kind of filter down into the oven. And I have a piece of stainless steel angle iron, and all I have to do is take some of the old screws out of the top of the frame. Kind of see it right there above the handle on the door. That black framer on the outside is screwed to the sheet metal. Take those screws out and then just slip that piece of stainless steel in there, and that'll cover everything off. Drill it out, put new screws in, and that'll hold it in place and should seal everything up real good. What kind of construction to do? I was a laborer, which means I did pretty much anything that was difficult, dirty, or dangerous. A lot of demolition work, water and sewer. I did that when I first started out. Did that for about 10 years, building water and sewer mains. Moved into building and trades, where it's new construction, remodeling, demolition, pouring concrete, lots and lots of concrete. I bet it's good without. Love the plain cake most of the time, not at all. Frosting takes away from spices. Yeah, I mean, too real heavy, sweet, thick layer of frosting on something like this, would take away from it. And that's why I made the glaze for it. It's just a thin layer on it. Turned out really good. You'll see in the video how I did it. Keep you in suspense. I'm not going to tell you what I did. You're late, but you made it, Granny Graham. We'll watch the replay. Well, thank you much. Graham in Virginia, watching from Clarksville, Tennessee. Okay. Let's see. Cast iron restorers here. Debbie must really be into her iron cleaning tonight. Yeah, once you get started on stuff like that, I mean, it's easy to put it off, but once you finally get into it, you want to get it done, and you don't want to stop and get distracted. I'll take another little bite of my cake. I got it sitting here. Get some off the top with that nice glaze on it. Come here, you. And it came out fairly moist, too. I mean, it's pretty good. It's not dried out or anything like that. It's got decent moisture to it. Like I said, it's a touch heavy. It did rise fairly good, but, maybe a little bit of tweaking, you get a better rise out of it. Some of these old recipes, I mean, tastes have changed over the years, and people have gotten used to how a commercial cake mix turns out, and something from scratch using old style recipes turns out a bit different. So it's not really what you expect all the time, but this is still pretty good. I mean, that's definitely something I would make again. Like I said, I might play with the recipe a little bit and see if I can get it to rise a little bit more, maybe a touch more baking powder, a little bit of baking soda to make it make a little more gas. Now I use cake flour on this, and you get more of a finer crumb with cake flour. Maybe something like this would be better off all-purpose flour, because it has more gluten and it'll trap the air bubbles, carbon dioxide bubbles a little better. And it's something that's definitely worth experimenting with if you wanted to try and get it like more like a modern cake, or just go ahead and go with it like this, because this is pretty good. I mean, like I said, I would definitely make it like that again. Wouldn't believe find a small travel wood cook stove old as dirt. Daughter said the Dutch used them on chuck wagons in the 1700s. Yeah, that is really cool. Something like that would be just neat as hell to have. I mean, they've made, Lodge, Columbus Ironworks, they made portable cast iron barbecue grills, things like that. But traveling cook stove, yeah, I mean, that really does sound cool. I would love to have something like that. Still using one of your great grandma's cast iron skillets from 1928. Yeah, I mean, cast iron lasts forever. I mean, even decent, if you use it now and then, keep it in shape. I mean, this can last 200-300 years easily. I've got a lot of stuff that's well over 100 years old, and there's a 200-year-old iron that's still floating around out there, and still as good as it was today. Linda Wilson just got a little Dixie wood burning stove last summer. That's why I found you. Love the stove outside on your patio. Yeah, I mean, if you don't need a lot of heat inside, a little pot-bellied stove, something that, there's a lot of different styles of small wood burning stoves. They work great for a patio heater, or just kind of a fire pit on your patio, really, if you want to do it like that. And a lot of people do use them like that. And you can use them outside if you're going to do like water bath canning or even pressure canning. They're nice to have outside. You can fire it up outside, and you don't have all the heat from your canning inside the house. We got two Russell Robinsons in here. Rusty Robinson's, good to see you. Make sure I'm caught up with everybody. Seems like I always end up missing a few people here somewhere along the line, or things like that. Sounds relaxing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people use little wood stoves for patio stoves, or they'll set up a summer kitchen kind of thing. Because that was pretty common, back in the days when all you had was a wood burning cook stove, was to have a summer kitchen. A lot of times it was a little lean-to built onto the side of the house, and you'd have a stove set up out there. You could either move your big stove outside under the lean-to, or get another smaller one. And they would use them during the summertime, so you wouldn't have a fire going inside the house and get the house all heated up. You have a Martin stove that has a flip collar, can either go straight up or out. Pretty cool little stove. Yeah, a lot of them you could set it up so the stove pipe either came up right out the top or out the back. Chinudo 145 showed up. Nice to see ya. And Granny would please that they still work until this day. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the, it's nice to have heirloom stuff, and with cast iron, stuff you get, you can definitely pass on to your kids and grandkids. And, even if it was something that you bought, it's going to be yours, and eventually that'll be your, be something that your grandkids got from you, because it'll last for a long time. The money even if you buy a fairly expensive new skillet, some of the boutique stuff, there's some new manufacturers out there that are making new cast iron that's, light and it's thin, it's machined on the inside, it's real nice stuff, but it's fairly expensive. But that's really money you're only going to have to spend once, and your grandkids won't have to spend it all because it'll outlive you by far. And if your grandkids end up with something that you spent $200 on now, it's not, it's an investment for future generations because they're not going to have to buy it because they ended up getting it from you. Spending most of your cast iron money on old paintball guns lately. Okay. Yeah, sometimes other things come along that you just got to have a few of them too. I have a Maytag gas stove. I burned wood on it in my cutting board. Yeah, I've done that. I've got a big burn mark on my cutting board where I set it on a hot burner. Start wondering, what's that smell? Why does it smell like burning wood in here when it shouldn't be? Oh yeah, bought a field cast iron, still very heavy compared to vintage. Yeah, I don't have a lot of any of the newer models. Eventually I'll start getting some, but some of them are lighter, some of them are heavier. I guess the Butter Pat and I'm trying to think of it. I can't think of it right offhand which one it is, whether it's Stargazer or Finex. The Butter Pat at least are known for being pretty thin and light, but I don't have any to actually compare. So, but I guess they have a reputation for being a pretty thin, pretty light cast iron. And I've been keeping, you see them every now and then on the Goodwill site, and I've been kind of saving some of them in my favorites, and eventually I'll do a show looking at some of the newer stuff and what it's going for. A lot of it though, it seems like it goes for damn near retail price on auction sites, which is kind of stupid because it's used. And if you're going to pay 90% of retail price plus shipping, it doesn't make much sense just not to buy something new. But once in a while, you'll see them go for for a decent price. I've looked a few times at what the prices are going for, but I don't remember right offhand. I think Butter Pat and Finex tend to be the most expensive ones. Then Stargazer, Field Company, they start getting less expensive. Then there's some other brands out there too. There's one made in Wisconsin, Marquette Forge. I've seen some of their stuff, but I haven't really looked into them all that much. There's another one. I can't think of. They're made in Ohio, I think. I can't think of the name right offhand, but I'd know it if I saw it. Then there's Burrow Furnace. They're a small company. They make a lot of Dutch ovens and that, and they have a little different designs to them. And they're fairly nice. Let's see here. It's a beautiful thing. Don't know what I was doing, but I just lucked out. Works like a champ. Can't seem to attach a picture. It's pale yellow enamel. The oven works great too for $120. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, for the prices for vintage cook stoves are kind of all over the place. Some of them are just exorbitantly expensive, even for something comparable to what I have. The prices range anywhere from $200 to $800. Usually a working one around here anywhere goes around $500. But I've seen listings for them where they go for a lot more than that, or see them in antique shops. And it depends on what you want. If you want something just for more or less display, you can find them fairly cheap. I mean, they're nice for a cupboard, and you can convert them to gas. Put gas burners in them and use them that way fairly easily. But if you want one that can actually be used as a wood burning stove, you got to keep an eye on the condition of the firebox, and the overall condition of them. And prices can vary quite a bit. So sometimes you get lucky and find a good one cheap. And sometimes you see bad ones that aren't usable anymore go for insane prices. Grabbed a Finex number 10 with a lid for $8. Can't pass it up. Yeah, I mean, the number 10 Finexes are fairly expensive, 150, $200 new with a lid. So $8 for it. Can't go wrong. Nothing else. You can turn around and sell it for 75 real easy. 64 watching, but only 39 likes. Hit the like button, y'all. Chris, was it you who got that number 4 Griswold for around $50? I know we've been discussing that two-handled, big two-handled skillet that I saw, I had on the show here the week before last, I think it was. And it turns out that was aluminum, and it's probably a recast. It's fairly rough. Somebody probably used a cast iron thing as a shop project, used a cast iron one as a pattern, and then poured it in aluminum because, a lot of the, tech school and high school casting classes, they use aluminum because it's easy to work with. And, it turns out that was actually aluminum. From the pictures, I just swore it was cast iron too. But even so, it's pretty interesting. It's an interesting thing. I mean, I would definitely wouldn't have been if I'd known it was aluminum, I probably would have paid less, but I wouldn't have been terribly disappointed in having it at that price even, just because it's such a interesting thing. And if that is a recast, it means that somewhere out there's probably the original cast iron versions of them floating around. And like I said, I think it's most likely a Columbus Ironworks thing because that ladder pattern on the back of little reinforcing ribs, you see that on a lot of Columbus on their fish fryers and things like that. So I'm kind of guessing somebody used a Columbus Ironworks iron original as a pattern. But I never seen anything like it before, and hopefully they'll find one again somewhere. I just found a 14-inch unmarked Wagner on Craigslist the other day. I didn't have anything this size. It's a monster. Spent more money on the trip trying to pick it up. Yeah, I mean, that can be, shipping or traveling can get to be a big part of the price of things, but you don't, big skillets like that, there weren't nearly as many of them made as the smaller ones, and they go for good prices. So if you can find one cheap, even with shipping or traveling to get it, the monster skillets are, like I said, they're tougher to find. You can, Lodge does still make some big new ones, but the vintage ones, you just don't see all that often, and they usually go for a good price when they do. Have your hubby outside. Cleaning will never be done, but you got a huge storage building, need to empty and get rid of it all. Yeah, I've been getting rid of furniture slowly over here, trying to clear out years worth of junk and extra furniture and things like that I don't really need anymore, generally downsized, so it's a little easier to maintain. But of course, you end up making an even bigger mess trying to clean up the mess that you got now, and end up with more clutter and chaos than you have. Trying to reduce the clutter and chaos makes more clutter and chaos. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the week before last, a number 4 and number 3 Griswold, they sold for $200 for the pair of them, and that was pretty much the price on that would have been pretty much the number 4. So yeah, for $50, 57 I think it was for number 4, that's a hell of a good deal. And I did see a number 4 Griswold was actually a Wagwald. It was made by Wagner, and that went for about $40, which is about right for those, because there's not a lot of demand for the Wagner made Griswold branded stuff. And even a number 4, they're pretty they don't go for a whole lot of stuff. They don't go usually for a whole lot for the stuff that was Wagner Ware manufactured Griswold branded stuff after they merged. You have seen cast iron ones? Yeah, I've never seen the double handled things like that before. It'd be nice to find a cast iron one, maybe someday. Brown recluses and black widows you got to worry about, and snakes in the boxes. Yeah, I mean, once you got the venomous wildlife moving into your storage areas, it's probably a good idea to get some of their hiding places out of there. But yeah, you definitely got to find getting that number 4 Griswold for $57. Love Erie spiders. Yeah, you don't see them very often, but yeah, you end up making more chaos trying to reduce the chaos you already got. Found a BSR Century number 12 for $5. Never used it until I did. Yeah, that's a hell of a good price for the for number 12. But pretty much anything. I mean, it's a good price for pretty much any cast iron except for, really small, cheap stuff. Speaking of larger skillets, I use my number 9, number 11. Use your number 9 and 11 Erie. They sit pretty flat, but when you heat them up on the stove, they seem to bowl and have a slight spin. Then it goes away when it cools down. Yeah, that's not uncommon, because the center of it will heat up faster than the rest of the pan, and it has to expand and go somewhere, so it will tend to bow down. And once it cools back down and contracts, it'll flatten out again. Where you get into problems is where you heat it up too hot too fast, and that expansion gets a permanent set to it, and that's what'll warp pans. Really big skillets, if the skillet is a good bit bigger than your burner, your best bet is to put them in the oven at like 300 degrees, for 15-20 minutes before you start using it, and get the whole thing heated up evenly, and then start cooking with it. And that'll prevent a lot of the warping, a lot of the permanent warping. Either that, or you put them on the stove over a low heat for 15-20 minutes and get the whole pan heated up slowly and evenly as you can. But with the big ones, you're better off just put them in the oven and preheat them before you start cooking with them. And that'll prevent anything from it'll help to prevent them from getting warped. But yeah, oops, hit my fork. But yeah, it is pretty normal for them to bowl a little bit in the middle when they heat up. Once the rest of the pan heats up, that'll kind of settle down some. Then once it cools down again, it should go away. But it's best to try and avoid that as much as you can on big pans like that. Preheat them in the oven first, and that'll definitely help to prevent any permanent problems. One of your favorite pans, your number 12 BSR cracked last year. It's an early century because it has the mill swirls on the inside. The newer ones don't. One of these days I'm going to see if I can get a hold of Stephen Strawn, maybe have him on for a guest if he's willing to, because apparently he's writing a book on BSR, which would be fantastic because there's not a lot of really organized information about Birmingham stove and range skillets, and he's gotten to be quite an expert on them. He's been collecting them for quite a while and doing some real research. So if a pan has a serious bowl, can it be removed with heat? Not really. It's if you try to warp it back the other direction, it's not likely to work. It's probably just going to want to warp more in the same direction. And it might be worth a try if you got some pan that you don't mind destroying in the process of experimenting, but I don't really see it working out well, because the problem with cast iron is it doesn't have any ductility really. It can't. I mean, it can bend, it can flex a little bit, but you can't stretch it. If you try and stretch on it, it'll crack. So unless you have the heat, pretty much perfectly, you're going to run into trouble with things like that. And trying to warp it back the other way, it's going to have to stretch the opposite direction. So I don't really see it happening. I mean, it might be worth a try if you can come up with a process that you can actually do it. It would definitely be helpful, but like I said, more likely you just make it warp more in the same direction that it already is. But yeah, I mean, I haven't approached him yet, but definitely been thinking about it. See if we can get him on and share some of his knowledge before he publishes it. And yeah, if he gets his book published, I would definitely get it too, just because I mean, I'm not that good of a researcher to begin with, and it's a lot easier to have somebody who actually has the skills and ability to organize information like that and get it published. And yeah, there'll definitely be a market for it, because there's not like I said, there's no real well organized information on the history of BSR, and on the different things that they put out, and dating older BSR stuff. You notice I don't take chances on my wood stove with my best pieces. Oh, sure I do. I use, in fact, I generally use my oldest stuff on the wood stove. The first one, when I first fired it up, I made Steak Diane in my artistic logo Erie number 9. And that's a fairly scarce one. So yeah, there's the stuff I have. I can say there's honestly nothing that I don't use. At least the stuff that I've got ready to use. And I kind of make a point of working my way through them and use to make sure that everything gets used at least occasionally to help keep it in good shape. I mean, if I had a really pristine, super rare, super expensive one, I might not use it very much, but I would probably use it at least once in a while on the wood stove, because the wood stove, it heats them up a lot more evenly than a gas or an electric stove would. So, yeah, I mean, that's the best place to use your really antique, ancient, vintage stuff. The Martin logo reminds me of the favorite Pequa smiley face. Are they related? No, the companies, never were never related, and but it is a pretty similar kind of design, and they're probably designed about the same time, that logo. So it was just kind of the general style of the times. It would have been around 1915 or so when the smiley logo came a bit later, probably in the 20s. But say 1915 to 1925 period was when the logos would have been designed. I have all cracked and warped irons and trying to use that stove. I don't know what you could be doing wrong. So, usually cracking and warping happens when, it could be that a lot of your stuff had been burned off in a fire before and had stresses to begin with. But usually cracking and warping happens because it's getting heated unevenly and heated way too fast. You have 2 gate mark skillets. They're both warped, but they cook great. Yeah, warping usually doesn't affect the way it cooks. I mean, you might have to put a little bit more oil in the bottom to make up for the dip. But, as far as using them, warping isn't really a problem. I mean, and it can work to your advantage sometimes, because if it's something scarce, a collector won't pay as much for a warped pan than they will for one that sits perfectly flat. So a lot of times you can get the same thing a bit cheaper if you're in a position where you can haggle over price. Say, hey, it's got a little bit of warp and spin to it, and you can knock some dollars off the asking price, and you'll have a pan that's just as good as anything else. Let's see. Bought a skillet recently, saw it pitting from rust. Could a lot of layers of seasoning fit, or is pitting too much for reseasoning? Uh, Pitting usually doesn't really affect the way it cooks. Eventually, most of it will fill in, and it'll smooth up and kind of even out some. Just keep using it as it is, and the pits usually don't really bother things too much. They pretty much fill in, especially the smaller ones, and the bigger ones. They'll get seasoned on the inside, and nothing's going to stick to them. So it's not really a problem. It does affect the value somewhat, but as far as using it, no, pitting is very seldom a problem. I have had a couple of times where it had some really fine pitting that even after it was seasoned good, it still wanted to stick there. It's kind of like Velcro. But 99% of the time, pitting isn't going to be a problem. Just go ahead and season it up and use it. I'll be right before you burn the whole house down. Love those wood stoves. Yeah, like I said, I've never had any problems with warping things or cracking them, especially on the wood stove, because it'll heat up more evenly on the wood stove because you got heat all around it. And I usually put it off to the side of the stove where it's a bit cooler and let the pan heat up, get it preheated good before I move it over onto the fire and start cooking with them. I carry a gate marked number 8 fancy handled skillets and mate to a number 8 griddle. Take them with me on the road. They're no problems. Yeah, I mean, and sometimes, if something cracks or, especially if it cracks, a lot of times it's because at some point in the history, it's been overheated and it has internal stresses that held on until you came along, and lucky you, it cracked on you. That's one of the reasons why you shouldn't burn pans off in a fire, because it's not going to heat evenly. It's going to, it can burn there's graphite incorporated in the cast iron, and you'll burn that out of the surface, and that'll make it brittle, more brittle than that normally would be. And it causes all kinds of problems with the iron itself, burning it off in an open fire like that, or even in a self-cleaning oven. A lot of people burn them off in an electric oven on a self-cleaning cycle. Well, that tends to overheat them, and if there's a lot of buildup on it, it can actually catch fire. So you don't want to have that happen. But anyhow, we've been at this for an hour, and it's 7:30, and at 7:33, according to my clock, 7:45, the video of me making a cake in my oven is going to premiere. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll see you guys over there. Took the pan outside in the cold. Took a pan outside in the cold, and it popped a crack. Yeah, really fast temperature changes can definitely cause it to crack. My mother's favorite is a Taiwan with a casting flaw. Yeah, I've got a little Taiwan skillet. Works great. I mean, it's probably one of the nicest browning skillets I have. So, there's nothing wrong with a good imported pan. I mean, it's just a matter of, finding the good ones. Some are really bad. A lot of them are really good. So, don't be too much of a snob about things like that. If you're looking for a good cast iron pan to cook with, a lot of the Taiwanese and Korean ones are really nice. They work great. They don't cost much. It's no great, if you're going to use them camping, especially, it's no big, it's no big deal if you lose one that you only paid $5 for. It took a long time to fix. Put your cast iron pans in a dishwasher. Yeah. The biggest thing with that is they tend to rust because the steam and all that, they sit wet for quite a while, and it's hot and wet, and yeah, they'll really rust up on you. But anyway, I got to get going here. Try and catch the last. Your first piece is a 13-inch pie logo. Yeah, that's really cool. The big pie logo Wagner's go for a lot of money. Anyhow, like I said, I'm going to wrap this up. What are my thoughts on the rarity of an older number 4 3-notch Lodge for $30? That's a pretty good price, especially for a number 4. Number 3 would be worth maybe 15 or 20 bucks, but a number 4, yeah, 30 bucks is a good price for it. Number 4s are pretty scarce no matter who made them. So anyhow, I'm going to bail out of here for real this time. I'll see you guys next week. There will be a show next week as far as I know, barring any catastrophes. And I'll see you in a few minutes over on that other video that I'm premiering. Night all.